All right, guys, I want to show you a quick shortcut. So we know that if we look at references, we know that we can create a variable for a color and put a value like a RGB or hex value in there, even actual text. Okay. We know that we can store them as a variable, as a value. Um, Learned a little bit about grayscale. If we have the same values for our RGB, all being at variations of 0 to 255, but if we have three of those, our RG and B values, they're all the same, then we're going to have some type of grayscale. But how do we end up picking that color that we want? Um, the easiest way that I would say is actually just type up something like color picker. Google actually already has a built-in one. So there's a couple things that you guys could pull. We can use it with hex values. We can also use it with RGB values. If you were planning on starting with a value, say this, and then wanting to tweak it, it is a lot easier to tweak with RGB values like this and than it is with a hex value. Because unless you know hex base decimal, that's going to be harder to calculate. But if I'm like, you know what, I want this, but I want a little bit more blue in it, I can, make the change and it's happening automatically. Okay. Instead of me having to try to figure out what I would want to pull from there. So either one of these, if you're like, yep, that's the color that I want this, you could go here, you could copy, you could come back to your editor, and you can paste it in. Okay, there's my values, and then I can display that. So fill color 1, correct. And we have a color with that value. So if I'm like, you know what, I want something that's a little bit bluish, I can pull this hex code, that's fine. You need to make sure that you're putting it inside of single quotes at least, okay? Because it's going to read it correctly. Now, I can't just easily change these values though. So if there was something that I was like, you know what, I need it a little bit lighter, and I'm using hex, I can't do that off the top of my head. But if I did have something like this, okay, and I had those values, then I could say, you know what, I want a little bit lighter. Maybe I'm going to add 10 to all of those. So 40 would become 50, 39 would become 49, 138 would be 148. Okay, and it's going to be the same color, it's just going to be a little bit lighter. I could keep doing that. 50 would be 60, 49 would be 59, 148 would be 158. Okay, it's going to be a little bit lighter until I get closer to 255 because that's white. If I want it darker, I could subtract the same value from this. But if I try to do that with the color picker and I was using hex, it's a little bit more difficult. Of course, I could just use a color picker to do it though and just drag it up or down to get that. Okay, so I could just keep pushing this up until I get the color that I want, copy it over, and I got it. Okay. So that's really, really easy for us to be able to find colors that we want. Now this, I'm manually putting those in, but I can store it as a variable, and then I can just call the variable. So this makes it easy. If I was planning on doing this with multiple different shapes, I don't have to write it 50 times. I can write it once and then call it however many times I need. Say I need to call it 50 times. All right. That's just a little bit of help using the color picker to make it easier for us to find the colors that we want. Good luck. Have fun.